We're celebrating 100 years of radio, and I want to know, from the time that you were little and you first turned it on to fast forward to now, you're a lead singer of a band that gets played on the radio. What has radio meant to you throughout your life?
Oh, wow, that's a big question. So much. I mean, I guess it's, it's, as a kid, it was hearing songs for the first time, it was hearing new music, and that was super exciting. It was, tuning in to hear the premieres of tunes by like your favorite bands or artists. It was discovering music. Like I used to listen to XFM a lot because I couldn't sleep very well. So I used to have the radio on. I used to listen to John Kennedy on XFM. Used to play, do album playbacks, and it's how I discovered so many albums that I love, so many artists. That's where I first heard Regina Spektor, Anthony Johnson, so many artists that became some of my absolute favorites. So it was like a real route of discovery. It was company. It was hearing other voices, hearing voices from around the world. It was like the school trip, listening to stupid, funny DJs, chatting rubbish. It's everything. And then, and growing up, it, I guess, really informs your taste, tells you what you do like, and then it also makes you realize what you don't like as well.
Yeah.
And then I guess in more recent years, it's been some of the coolest, weirdest, most surreal moments of our lives, getting to play shows live on radio and in different countries all over the world, and
meeting friends like this.
Exactly, making friends along the way.
Come on.
Yeah, no, it's just, it's such an amazing medium. It's so it's so connecting in so many ways, and it's as my life has gone on, I've and we've traveled so much, getting to just hear what radio is like in different countries is pretty cool. The threads that run through the world over, and quite hilarious differences. But what about you? What's your relationship? Obviously, it's one of the main things in your life.
Well, when I was a little girl, I remember listening to the radio was everything to me. It was my escape, and at the time, that's all we had was radio. And it's always just been this consistent friend that's never left. And you said it earlier, it's company, but it also has informed my taste in music, because it's the first place that I figured out what I'm drawn to and what I wasn't. And from there, my relationship with music would grow. So, I'm a big fan. And last night I hadn't listened to Doom Days in a while, and I feel like you were onto something when you wrote Doom Days. But I've been re-listening to all the records, and here's an observation I made about you. You have always kept a very watchful eye on the underbelly of the world. You've always been a keen observer of the times that we live in, and that's sewn into every record, but Doom Days in particular. So what inspired you to tell the story of Doom Days? Take me back to the beginning of Doom Days, because I think that record it's almost spooky now, some of the things that you say and how fitting they are.
Yeah, it's very weird. We were just I was chatting to our tour manager today, and for our second album, obviously it isn't Doom Days, but for our second album, we spent the entire time wearing boiler suits and sort of face masks, and then followed that up with an album called Doom Days about the apocalypse.
Yeah.
I guess at the beginning, I think it was we were looking at the world and the changes in the world, sort of the world over politically, and with it, I don't know, I guess the news as a window into the world that we live in is always a really confusing one, for many reasons. And I guess we wanted to, having made a second album that kind of confronted some of the big moments of change that were happening in the UK, the US, all over the world. I think we felt like, having lived in that for a couple of years, touring and playing that show, we wanted to make something that was an escape from that, and a kind of tongue-in-cheek, intentional, willful ignoring of it. But in the process of making this album, which was meant to be, a euphoric, escapist, hedonistic record about a night out where you choose to ignore all these things.
No, and you feel it from the get-go, from midnight, you get that feeling. So you started that off pretty well. Then
I think, a bit like the process, and a bit like what life is like anyway, you know, however hard you try, whatever intentions you have to sort of block that stuff out, it inevitably leaks in, and it inevitably seeps back into your mind and your thoughts and your experiences, and you know, maybe via your phone or something you hear on the radio or something you hear overhear in a conversation. So yeah, in trying to make an album that ignored all that, it ended up becoming almost entirely about it, but constantly trying to push the arc towards finding solace in other people. And that's why the album starts like with midnight, kind of widescreen, driving through a city, and it ends with just a single person lying on their kitchen floor. And I thought there's something about that process of like zooming in, and just examining, like, you know, the anxieties and complications and the effects that the state of the world at the moment can have on all of our minds. And we tried to do it in not too serious a way, but I guess with us sometimes the lyrics are quite serious, but the music is sort of more fun. Yeah. So hopefully sort of playing with that tension a bit. But yeah, no, that's sort of where the album came from. And it's kind of ironic that it meant we were trying to avoid the apocalypse, and instead we just...
And here we are. Can I, one more quick question about that album. So at the beginning it starts, you know, like in the car, zooming through the city, and at the end it finishes with one person, but in the middle there's 4 a.m. And I just kind of want to get in your head about 4 a.m., particularly when you sing, "You are my familia, you are my familia." In your head, when you wrote that, were you envisioning, like, were there people lying on the floor next to you? Were your friends passed out? Were you alone or surrounded?
Yeah, it was, you know, it's a couple of things. It is that feeling of like being at a party or at a house with like a load of mates, you know, very late at night, and that sort of real warm, enveloping feeling that these people, like, regardless of who they are your family. And like
people,
on certain nights out, they could be people you've only met once, but they still feel like you're in that time and in that context. But it also speaks to, you know, in my life, it speaks to like my friends, you know, our family on tour, the band, all of our crew who we absolutely adore. Like, you know, we have loads of different families in our lives. Our families at home, you know, our families on the road. You know, as a band, we love and hate each other like brothers do,
like family.
And also, you know, it's kind of aimed at our fans. Like I loved singing that song on tour every night and kind of sitting down at the front of the stage in and amongst everyone. And it's potentially cheesy as, but like the idea of,
it's sentimental.
Yeah. But I think for me, it's sort of sentimental in a kind of woozy, slightly off your head kind of way, where like, I think what we tried to capture with the album as well is like in those moments of inebriation, there's a vulnerability there. There's in the things that people will say and the earnestness with which people speak to each other at those times of the night. Like there's a real kind of quite sweet vulnerability, which is ironic because often the things that get you there are very far from vulnerable.
Because you're very disarmed and there's no agenda, and you're woozy enough that when you look at the person next to you, you're sharing a moment, and you look at that person, you're like, "I love you, man." And in that moment, you truly mean it.
You do.
Your guards are down. Before we get to the new song, which is awesome, I want to ask you two things about 2020, this God-forsaken but life-changing year. When did 2020 start to turn for you? When did life start to kind of twist in a way that you thought, oh, I need to, my entire life as I know it is about to change?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I feel like with COVID-19, it seems like there was a sort of ripple effect of everyone having their eureka moment about how serious it was. And I remember here in London on a Friday night, me and a load of my friends went to like a comedy show, and things were feeling really strange and everyone was talking about it, and a bunch of my friends are doctors and they were sort of, obviously it was at the front of everyone's minds, but we were still out and kind of feeling weird about it and guilty. And the next day was, I guess, for all of us, our moment of like, wow, things are going to shift now. But I remember speaking to my parents and trying to get them to take it seriously, and having friends, you know, other friends in other friendship groups and stuff who were still, you know, for a week still kind of doing stuff and going out. And I feel like here in particular, that over the course of like a fortnight, it felt like different people had that moment at different times. But I think just before we were back in the UK, I was in LA for a bit doing some writing, and one of the, I remember the girlfriends of one of the guys I was writing with was a nurse, and before I left, because we were flying from LA to Australia to do a tour, she was like, she gave me a face mask and was like, you should probably have this. And it was funny because at the time we were flying to Oz, and there were these awful bushfires in Australia, and that was kind of at the forefront of my mind. And I remember her giving me this mask and me almost, you know, it seemed sort of otherworldly that I'd wear it. I was like, well, thank you, and that's really nice. And since then, it's come in really handy having that in my bag. But you know, it's just so funny what a difference what a difference a few weeks makes, or even at that point, what a difference like overnight made. And just seeing this thing ripple around the world, and how different countries have dealt with it, and you know, the way different governments have communicated things. It's just you know, indescribably crazy. But I don't know, what was your moment?
I just remember it started to happen, and I felt once they put us on lockdown, I had a real, like, that first week was just, I was anxiety ridden, and it was fearful, and it was scary, and it was all of the ugly things. It really was. And it didn't feel real. It still doesn't feel real. None of this feels real. You and I DM'd a couple of times, and then I think after a few weeks, I realized something about myself. I need structure. So I created a routine for myself. Like, I bought a bike and I explored LA, and I found I found a rhythm. And when I found my rhythm, I was better. But I still haven't fully embraced our world. Like, I feel like I'm going to wake up tomorrow and it's going to be back to normal.
Yeah, I mean, I keep, and you know, London at the moment is at a point of being quite open. You know, looking around to other places, you know, looking to LA, looking to other European countries, and you know, and parts of Australia that have like had their second lockdown. I think all of us here are feeling like, what can we safely get in while we still legally can? You know, so just the idea that the whole world was locked down at the same time, it was just totally mad. It was not something you ever could have predicted. And I think one of my friends was joking, you know, if a year ago we'd been able to cut to what we were all up to this year, we'd have all been so confused. Like, no one would have believed that this would have been in real life. But yeah, it's been really strange. And I'm really aware that for some people it's been like the absolute worst time of their lives, and it's also kind of mad that we had this big common experience, but it's been, for some people, they've sort of thrived and loved it. Other people have had just indescribably awful experiences.
I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm somewhere in the middle of that. But this is the last question before we get to the new song, but is there anything that you took for granted once we got locked down, and once things were taken away from us, privileges, touring for you, hugging, touching? Was there anything that you took for granted that you think, I'll never take that for granted again?
Yeah, I guess just being able to see people, you know, the freedom of being able to see people. You know, I think travel we definitely took for granted, and potentially, given, you know, how not amazing it is for the environment, maybe took a bit too far for granted, particularly in our line of work, where we kind of, well, you know, we sort of got to the point where we jump on a plane and go to another country or another continent without even really thinking about it. And that I guess, those kind of freedoms, the freedom to be with people and see your family, like hug your parents, you know,
everything, basically everything.
Yeah, totally. Like, it just was, you know, it's been so strange. But then, you know, like a bit like you, I fixed my bike up and have just been cycling everywhere. And you know, there was a point where obviously everything was scary and really, really bizarre at the beginning, but being able to get out for like a couple of hours a day and cycle around central London, which is notoriously one of the busiest parts of the country, you'd be able to be there and it's like a zombie movie, empty, like nothing there. It was kind of like, in vaguely trying to look for some positives amongst this. That was very
my favorite. So I got a bike, and then I would explore all of LA when there was no cars. So going down the Sunset Strip, or like, you name it, and it was just me, my bike, and my headphones. And so that was great.
That's really cool.
Now, well, one day, if you're ever here again, maybe I'll take you on a bike tour. One day.
Yes, I'd love that. That'd be amazing. Yeah, I also, because LA is such a car city, I almost like can't imagine cycling around it.
I know all the tricks. I know all the tricks now.
Yeah, I have been cycling to our studio and started doing that when the town was completely empty. And as things have opened back up again, it's got busier and busier. I had my first receiving end of a road rage incident.
Yeah.
A lorry driver was screaming at me and he wanted me to die. That was fun. That was that was the moment when I was like, lockdown's definitely over.
Yeah.
Because there was a point, particularly at the beginning, where I feel like everybody's empathy levels really sort of.
And they were waving at you, and some people were smiling, and now the anger is back. That's not.
When I had a truck driver leaning out of his window screaming that he wanted me to die, that was probably the moment where I was like.
It's a bit harsh. Okay, so we've now heard the new song, and it's amazing. How different? It's different to me as a fan, but how different is where are you now? Is this a new beginning for Bastille? Do you think this is a departure from what people expect from you?
Definitely, yeah. I think we sort of look to our first three albums as a bit of a trilogy. Our creative process was kind of the same across the whole thing, and they represent a kind of unit and a body of work. And I think coming to the end of the Doom Days time of our lives, we wanted to just to keep things fresh. I think this was a song that started life on the tour bus in Salt Lake City at the end of last year, and I just wanted to make something heavy and exciting and surprising. And I think our one rule for ourselves in this next phase or era or whatever is just hopefully to surprise people at every turn. And so it's been fun. Like we just sort of like tore up the rule book of how we do things and started again. And this song, I guess it was finished. We loved it. We were excited, and we just wanted to get it out and put it out in the world and see what people think. The video was a really fun process as well. I'm just like, I think we with this song in particular really wanted people to push play and for everything to kick in and then be like, that's Bastille.
It does right away.
Also, like with Graham Coxon on What You're Gonna Do, like we just sent it to him.
Crazy.
Because we absolutely love Blur and I'm a huge fan of his. We sent it over and we're like, I wonder, like it's lockdown, I wonder if he's definitely free, I wonder if he'll be up for it. And it was really cool. He said yes, and he sent us the guitars, and then I was like, let's see how far I can push this. I was like, dude, do you want to do some vocals? And he was like, yeah, sure. So that was is also a whole other surreal like element of this, is having this like absolute living legend whose music we adore, be on one of our tracks. Is sort of crazy. And I think, maybe in the alternative world it's a bit less it's a bit less common to do a collaboration like this, but it's
a new world though. It's a new world, Dan. New
world.
One other thing I read that you said was that you feel like right now you guys are making the best music you've ever made, I think you've made 3 flawless albums, which you'll never admit, but to me they're flawless. And that is a very bold statement for a musician to make. How do you know that you have tapped into something?
I just think I'm just so excited about it in the moment. And I think because the world is on its head at the moment, and and music is constantly changing in the way people release it, we just want to keep people on their toes, put stuff out as, whilst it's new and fresh to us and feels exciting. And I think, most musicians that you ask always feel like what they're working on at that very point is their best, but we just feel really excited and confident about it. And
really
and I want people to hear it, and I'm excited and a bit nervous to see what people think, but I guess I'm maybe done apologizing as much for everything that we do. And
we need to all stop apologizing for things and just like, this is something I created from my heart, from the best place, like enjoy. Yeah. What does this mean for the future of Bastille as far as album? We don't know if you can tour. So is it liberating to think you could just release songs here and there, or do you still think in terms of creating an entire piece of work?
I guess we're just excited to be putting stuff out, and hopefully people will come on this sort of journey with us. It's been really fun. It's been really exciting so far, and we're just excited to kick the doors off and start this new phase. Okay. And yeah,
I'll accept that answer. Two last questions. One of them is a personal question. Is there an acoustic version of Pompeii anywhere that I can get my hands on?
Good question. I don't think there's. Yeah.
Well, there's a reason. So one of the things that when I got my bike and I was trying to embrace this pandemic, I made a playlist. It's called it was my quarantine playlist, and it starts with Pompeii because the lyrics, if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing's changed at all? So it starts with Pompeii. But the way that you do it at a live show where you start it off on the piano and then it kicks in, I need that. I think we all do, but I need to find that.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be one, there'll be an absolute shitload of them on YouTube and stuff. I don't know if we ever properly put one out on.
I need a proper one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I hear you. Okay. Well, I'll get on.
My birthday's in November, and I'm not going to be able to have a birthday because of pandemic. So just keep that in mind.
Well, thanks for having the song on your playlist.
Yeah. No. There's a few Bastilles, but then the last thing I want people to know that you did, which I thought was really cool, is you created a film club because you're a film buff, and it's called Distraction Tactics. So I want you to talk a little bit about it, and if people want to join you, I want them to be able to.
Yeah, well, we've been meaning to talk about this for ages, and I think when lockdown happened, everyone's lives flipped on their heads, and there was this real sense of being physically divided, but kind of emotionally connected with so many people in your life and strangers, and whatever this sort of unifying thing that happened to all of us. At the very beginning, I was trying to think, as what can I do to try and be useful or helpful, and obviously do like a load of stuff within my local community, and I've been like working at some food banks and trying to help in that way. But to our fans on the online world, like what would be a nice, light-hearted thing to do? And I think, like you said, everyone was looking because the days of the week kind of went out the window. Everyone was looking for routine and for structure, and so we thought we'd start a film club. We thought we'd start a film club as a way to suggest that, to hopefully show a bunch of people who maybe slightly like films, show them, direct them towards some films that we think are great. But also the idea was week by week, because obviously traveling isn't a thing anymore, that we go from country to country week by week.
Brilliant.
We pick a different film, and it was kind of tricky to pick them because we wanted to have things that felt vaguely positive, and I didn't want to, particularly at the beginning, be giving people super depressing, weird left field films. It was a nice reason. It was basically an excuse to meet up once a week with a load of people, talk about a film on Instagram Live, and put the questions that members of the film club, so fans of the film, had to the filmmakers themselves. So we were really lucky. The one thing about lockdown is that you kind of knew that everyone was doing nothing. Yeah. So we were able to speak to directors, animators, cinematographers, writers, actors, actresses, the whole lot. And it was really amazing. As a film fan, I got to put questions to people that I love and admire.
I know. Were you a little bit geeking? And so there was one that you did, and I cannot pronounce his name, so please help me. Taika Waititi. Oh, how do you pronounce it?
Taika Waititi, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so you did that one, and I was geeking out for you. Do you get nervous interviewing these people that are from a different genre?
I've been on the other side of a lot of interviews, and I did used to do student radio and stuff, but I'm not a good, I sort of went into it. Basically, the intention of the whole thing was to have a nice excuse to give people a bit of distraction, to form a community and start a conversation. And we wanted it to be really, really inclusive. And so what was nice for me was in those conversations, I was putting other people's questions to these people. So the pressure wasn't on me, but every week we do a call out for questions, and I'd go through, you know, hundreds and hundreds and pick out the ones I thought would be the most interesting for the filmmakers. And it was really fun. You know, for me, it was to have something to do. It was a really amazing sense of like how lucky we are to have fans in so many countries all over the world. Like that was really like humbling and overwhelming. And yeah, I was massively geeking out. I mean,
I was geeking out for you.
Threefold, because both of these are people who like massively admire and never thought I'd have a conversation with. Then also I'm like, I'm not a presenter and I'm not a journalist. So me having to sort of keep my composure, do that. But then also I was basically out of nowhere suddenly running a kind of like online TV show, having to sort of direct, edit,
not easy.
Different things, read questions, and do links. And I don't know about you, the thing I found hard, it just gave me a real appreciation of the skill that it takes to do an interview, particularly given like when you know you have questions coming up, you ask someone something and they give you an answer, but if you're nervous, you're like so focused on what you're going to ask next that you almost like don't engage. So over the course of like however many weeks we did, I think I got better. But at the beginning, I was like, oh, what you've just said is so interesting, but I know that I have to like,
and you go,
edit things. I'm reading these questions and comments are coming in. So yeah, I mean, it was a real crash course.
I'm so glad you said all these things, because it's not easy, because you do have to have a run of show, if you will. But then if you're really listening to the person speaking, you can go off the map a little bit. And then, but how do you get back? It's fucking crazy.
Also, I was really aware like that people had taken the time to send in these questions, and I really wanted to do justice. So like I had to keep stopping myself from going off on one and just having a conversation with this person, because as amazing as that would have been. Also, you know, it was hilarious. Like the Wi-Fi in my house is rubbish. So like I'd be having like the most amazing conversation with the director that I absolutely love, and I'm just 6 dodgy pixels, you know, and I can't hear what they're saying. I was like, oh God.
I know. And you don't want to ask them to repeat. I sympathize with you. I get it.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find you on Distraction Tactics if they want to join in?
So a lot of it is living online. We're on a bit of a hiatus at the moment because we've just been a bit distracted ourselves with getting this music ready. But it's definitely, I'm really, you know, it was a shambles, but it was fun, and I'm really proud of it. And you know, it's something that will come back, maybe slightly less regularly, but I think that's like season 1 is done. And yeah, we've got some interesting plans for new ones. But if people want to watch the episodes, you know, they're online. They're on our Instagram.
Okay.
And I warn you, they're like, it's not very slick, but it is. But it was fun. And there's some amazing people, like you know, some really impressive.
Yeah, I was impressed. You created a community, and the people that you drew in were fabulous. And the new song, "What You're Gonna Do," is amazing, and it is going to surprise people in the best way. And I can't wait to hear what's next. And I've told you this a million times. First of all, I love all of you. Every single human in your band is a great guy. You are one of the best songwriters out there, and on so many different levels. And I know it's a bold statement, but Dan, you write beautifully. It's such a beautiful gift. So thank you for sharing it with us.
Thanks. It's pretty much the only thing I feel remotely able to do. So I'm glad I don't.
Thank you so much. You know I adore you, and send me as much music as possible.
You too. I will. So nice to see you. Thank you so much. Lots of love.